Welcome. We're tackling something pretty fundamental today. How we actually form habits and how we break them too.
Yeah, and we're diving into really focusing in on atomic habits.
Exactly. And what really grabbed me right away was the author's own story. I mean, coming back from a really, really serious injury to become an academic All-American,
Mm-hmm.
that journey, built on these tiny gradual improvements,
Hmm.
it just really sets the scene for everything, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission today really is to pull out the most important, actionable stuff on habit change for you.
Think of it like your quick guide, right? How those little daily choices actually shape who we end up becoming.
Exactly, your shortcut, basically.
Right. Now, maybe you're already deep into habit science, or maybe you're just curious. Either way, we've set this up to be, clear, engaging, and definitely no confusing jargon.
We'll try our best.
Okay, let's jump in. First big idea,
Hmm.
the power of really small habits.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how we often just dismiss these tiny actions, isn't it? But big results, they rarely just happen overnight. They're
Mhm.
almost always the pile up, the accumulation of these small, consistent wins, things you barely notice day to day.
Like saving a tiny bit of money each day. Seems like nothing at first.
Exactly. But fast forward decades and boom, it's a real nest egg. Same goes for like your health, even how messy or tidy your house is.
They're lagging measures, as the book calls them.
Right. They reflect your repeated habits. You kind of get what you consistently do at the end of the day.
It's that slow burn, isn't it? Those tiny gains or losses just compounding over time, defining where you actually land. The book asks some pretty direct questions, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like, are you consistently spending less than you earned? Are you actually doing that workout each week? Learning something new daily? These small daily battles, he calls them. They really do shape your future self.
Mm.
Which brings us to this fascinating concept, the plateau of latent potential.
And the valley of disappointment. Oh, this is so key.
Right. Why is it so important?
Well, because everyone gets discouraged when they don't see results right away. We expect this straight line, put in effort, get results.
But life's not like that.
Not usually, no. There's often this phase, this valley, where you're working hard, you're consistent, but nothing seems to be changing.
Feels like wasted effort.
It feels like it, but it's not. Think of bamboo. Spends years, literally years, growing this huge root system underground that you can't see, and then suddenly it shoots up incredibly fast. Your effort, that's the roots. It's being stored.
Ah, so you're building the foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then eventually you hit that plateau of latent potential, that tipping point where all that stored work finally breaks through. Looks like overnight success to everyone else, maybe.
Right. They just see the big spurt of growth, not the years underground. It's like the ice cube analogy, right? Trying to melt it at 31 degrees. Nothing seems to happen, but just one more degree.
And suddenly it all changes. Exactly. So if you feel stuck, remember the bamboo. The roots are growing.
Good reminder. And that leads nicely into this other really big idea, focusing on systems over just setting goals.
Yeah, this can be a real mind shift for people. We're always told, set big goals, focus on the outcome.
The finish line.
Right. But the book argues, pretty convincingly, I think, that the results themselves aren't the main thing to fix. It's the systems underneath that produce those results.
Okay, explain that more.
Well, think about weight loss. If you're always fighting the scale, the issue isn't really the number. It's the system, right? Your eating habits, your exercise routine.
So focusing only on the goal, the number, is just treating the symptom.
Pretty much. For real change, you got to fix the root cause of the system driving your behavior. Fix the inputs, the system, and the outputs, the results. They'll start to take care of themselves.
Forget the finish line. Build the right road. I like that. The system is the road.
It is. It leads you there almost automatically if it's designed well.
So instead of just, I want to lose 20 pounds, the goal you focus on building a system of, say, packing a healthy lunch and walking for 30 minutes daily.
Exactly. That's sustainable. That's long-term change.
And it also touches on something kind of surprising, how goals can sometimes actually limit our happiness.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. We often attach this idea to goals. When I achieve X, then I'll be happy.
Always deferring it.
Right. You're basically putting happiness on hold, always living in a state of not quite there yet. Plus, goals can create this win or lose thing, right? Either you hit it and you're happy, or you miss and you feel like a failure.
Whereas focusing on the system.
Focusing on the system, on the process, lets you feel progress and satisfaction along the way. You actually enjoy the journey, not just fixate on the destination.
Okay, so we've got the power of small habits, compounding, and the importance of systems. Now let's dig into something really deep. Identity. How does our sense of self connect to all this?
Oh, this is huge. It's really profound, actually, how much our identity and our habits are tangled up together.
Mm.
Our behaviors. They're often just a reflection of who we believe we are, whether we realize it or not.
So if I see myself as a healthy person,
You're much more likely to act in ways that fit that identity. Research backs this up. The book gives the example of voting. People who identified as being a voter were way more likely to vote than those who just said they intended to vote.
that's a subtle but powerful difference, isn't it? It's not just something you do, it's part of who you are.
Exactly. If you truly see yourself as someone who exercises, you don't have that constant internal battle about whether to go to the gym. It's just what you do.
It becomes automatic, aligned with your self-image.
And the book says when your behavior and identity are fully aligned, you're not really chasing change anymore. You're just acting like the person you already believe yourself to be.
Wow. But it's not just one way, right? Habits also shape identity.
Absolutely. It's a feedback loop. Your habits reinforce your identity, and your identity shapes which habits feel natural to you. It goes back and forth.
So how do we steer that loop?
The key insight is to let your desired identity, your core values, drive the loop. Don't just focus on the results you want. Focus on the type of person you want to become.
So the real point of habits isn't just, say, getting fit, but becoming the kind of person who is fit.
Precisely. The outcome is almost a byproduct of embodying that identity. And this idea, identity change, the book calls it the North Star of habit change. It guides everything.
Okay, makes sense. So if identity is the North Star, how do we actually navigate towards it? How do we build these habits?
Yeah.
That brings us to the 4 laws, I guess.
Exactly. This is the practical framework. Any habit, good or bad, conscious or not, breaks down into 4 steps. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Cue, craving, response, reward.
Yep. That 4-step pattern is the backbone of literally every habit. Your brain runs through it in that exact order every single time.
Okay, let's take the first one. Law, #1, make it obvious. What's the cue all about?
The cue is basically the trigger. It's the little signal to your brain that says, hey, a reward might be coming if you do this thing.
Like the notification sound on your phone?
Perfect example. That sound, the cue, predicts the potential reward of seeing a message or social update. Our brains are constantly scanning for these cues, predicting rewards. Historically, it was cues for food, water, safety.
Primary rewards.
Right. Now we're also tuned into cues for secondary rewards, money, praise, status, accomplishment, that kind of thing.
So the cue kicks off the whole habit loop. And the book mentions that as habits get stronger, the cues can become almost invisible.
Totally. They become automatic. Like you might not even consciously notice the bag of chips on the counter or the TV remote on the sofa, but your brain does, and it triggers the habit automatically.
Which is why just being aware of our cues is the critical first step. You can't change what you don't see.
Exactly. You got to understand your current habits before you can build new ones. But it's tricky because they operate below conscious awareness once they're ingrained.
So how do we become more aware? The book suggested a couple of tools.
Yeah. The first one is super practical, the habits scorecard.
Okay, what's that involve?
It's pretty simple, really. You just list out your daily habits, everything you typically do. Wake up, check phone, brush teeth, make coffee.
The whole routine.
The whole thing. Then you go through the list and mark each one. Is it a good habit? Moves you towards your goals. A bad one moves you away. Or neutral.
Forces you to actually notice the automatic stuff.
Precisely. It brings awareness. It's kind of like that pointing and calling technique they use on Japanese railways.
Pointing and calling. Tell me about that.
It sounds a bit odd, but conductors there physically point at signals, gauges, whatever, and call out the status aloud. Signal is green.
Seems redundant.
You'd think so, but it drastically cuts down on errors because it forces a non-conscious automatic check into conscious awareness. The habits scorecard is like your personal pointing and calling for your own life.
Making the unconscious conscious, like Jung said. Okay, I get it. So once we're aware of the cues, how do we use that to build new habits? The book talks about implementation intentions.
Yeah, and habit stacking. These are ways to make the cues for your good habits really obvious and specific.
Okay, implementation intention first.
That's basically making a very specific plan. I will do behavior at time and location. So not just I'll exercise more, but I will go for a 30-minute walk at 7 a.m. around my neighborhood.
Removes the vagueness.
Exactly. It tells your brain precisely when and where to act. Then habit stacking builds on that by linking your new desired habit to one you already do consistently.
Piggybacking.
Pretty much. The formula is, after I current habit, I will make new habit.
So like, after I finish my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute.
Perfect example. You use the completion of the existing reliable habit as the immediate cue for the new one. Your habits scorecard helps you find those solid existing habits to stack onto.
Makes sense. Choose something you already do without fail. And make sure the timing fits, obviously.
Right, don't stack a daily habit onto a weekly one.
Got it. So we make the cue obvious through planning and stacking. What about our surroundings? The environment seems huge in the book.
Oh, absolutely massive. Our environment shapes our behavior constantly. Remember Lewin's equation. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment. BFPE.
Right.
Often, the easiest way to change behavior isn't internal willpower. It's changing the external world around you. Every habit depends on its context.
Like whispering in a library versus shouting at a football game.
Exactly. The environment cues the behavior. So if you want to build a good habit, make the cue for it super obvious in your environment.
How do we do that practically?
Well, think about bad habits first. Why are they sticky? Often because the cues are everywhere. A smoker sees cues when driving, stressed with friends who smoke.
Okay.
We can flip that for good habits. Want to practice guitar more? Leave it out on a stand in the middle of your living room, not hidden in a closet. Want to eat more fruit? Keep a fruit bowl on the counter.
Make the best choice, the most obvious, visible choice.
That's the goal. Design your environment to nudge you in the right direction.
I like that phrase, environment design. And the book even suggests having separate spaces for different activities. One space, one use.
Yeah, that helps create clearer mental boundaries. If you work, relax, and eat all on the same couch, your brain gets confused about what it's supposed to be doing there.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are. But having, say, a dedicated workspace, even if it's just a specific corner, helps signal work time to your brain when you're there. The author mentioned doing this with a home office and how much it helps separate work and life.
Makes it easier to switch gears. And it also mentions starting new habits in a new environment can be easier.
Right, because you're not fighting against all those old, ingrained environmental cues that trigger your previous habits. It's like a clean slate.
Okay, that's a lot on law #1. Make it obvious. Let's move to law #2. Make it attractive.
Yeah.
What makes us want to do a habit?
It all comes down to the craving. That's the motivational engine behind every habit. It's that feeling of wanting, anticipating the reward.
Dopamine.
Dopamine is key. It spikes not just when you get the reward, but actually more in anticipation of it. That anticipation is what drives us to act. Evolutionarily, we're drawn to things linked with pleasure, social acceptance, survival.
Okay, so how do we make good habits, which might not seem immediately attractive, feel more desirable? The book had that temptation bundling idea.
Yes. Temptation bundling is super clever. You pair something you need to do with something you genuinely want to do.
Give me an example.
Okay, say you need to process your emails, but you really want to catch up on your favorite podcast. The bundle is, I will only listen to my favorite podcast while I'm processing my emails.
So the want pulls the need along with it.
Exactly. You link the attractive thing to the necessary thing. You borrow the craving from the fun activity.
Smart. What about other people? The book really stressed social influence on attractiveness.
Hugely important. We're social creatures, hardwired to fit in, bond, gain approval. So behaviors become way more attractive if they help us do that.
And we copy specific groups.
The book highlights 3 main ones: the close, friends, family; the many, the dominant culture or group norm; and the powerful, those with status we admire.
Makes sense. If all your friends are runners, running seems more attractive.
Totally. Or the example of smoking, often starting because friends do it. And the Polgar sisters in chess. They grew up in a family obsessed with chess, making it the normal, attractive thing to do.
So the surrounding culture defines what's desirable.
Pretty much. So a great strategy is to join a group or community where your desired behavior is already the standard. Find your tribe, you know? We tend to adopt the habits of those around us.
Surround yourself with the people who have the habits you want.
Exactly. And another angle is reframing how you think about a habit to make it more attractive internally.
Reframing, how does that work?
It's about changing your perspective. Like if you're meditating and get distracted, instead of thinking, "Ugh, I failed," you reframe it as, an opportunity to practice returning to my breath. Or feeling nervous before a presentation. Reframe it as, this is excitement. This adrenaline will help me focus. Shifting the story you tell yourself changes the feeling associated with the habit.
Finding the positive spin, essentially, makes it less of a drag. Okay,
Right.
law #2, make it attractive. Now, law #3 is about practicality. Make it easy.
Yep. And this one is really straightforward at its core. We naturally gravitate towards things that require less effort. The law of least effort.
We're inherently lazy.
Maybe efficient is a kinder word. But yeah, we prefer the easy path. And here, the book makes a really important distinction between motion and action.
Motion versus action.
Right.
What's the difference again?
Motion is planning, researching, strategizing, things that feel like progress but don't actually produce a result, like reading articles about exercise.
Okay.
Action is doing the thing itself that gets the result, like actually exercising.
And we get stuck in motion.
Often, yeah. Because motion feels productive, but it's safe. There's no risk of failure like there is with action. It's easier to research diets than to actually change how you eat.
Ah, I feel called out. So the goal is to make the action itself easier.
Exactly. Make it as frictionless as possible.
Ow.
Well, one way is just repetition. Practice makes perfect, right? Every time you do something, the neural pathways get stronger, making it more automatic and less effortful over time, like learning to type or drive.
Becomes second nature.
Right? The other big way is actively reducing friction for your good habit.
Removing the obstacles.
Precisely. Think about setting out your workout clothes the night before. That's reducing friction for exercising in the morning. Stocking your fridge with healthy snacks reduces the friction for eating well.
Making it easier to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's like the lean production idea from manufacturing constantly removing waste and inefficiency. Good companies do this too, making their products super easy to use.
Simplifying the process. And technology can cut both ways here, right?
Totally. Tech can make good habits easier, automatic bill pay, prescription refills, but it also makes bad habits frictionless, like autoplay on videos keeping you glued to the screen.
So we need to be mindful of how we use it. The book also mentioned priming the environment.
Yeah, that's about setting things up in advance to make the next good action almost effortless. The example was Oswald Knuckles' resetting the room strategy.
Remind me.
After he finishes an activity, he puts everything back where it belongs immediately so the room is perfectly ready for the next time. No clutter, no setup needed, just walk in and start.
Making the starting point seamless.
Yeah.
And decisive moments.
Those are the little choices throughout the day that act like forks in the road. Take the stairs or the elevator, grab fast food or cook. Each small choice sets you up for your next set of options.
They shape the path ahead.
Exactly. Making the easy choice, the good choice at those moments is key. And maybe the most powerful technique here is the 2-minute rule.
Ah, yes, the 2-minute rule. So it's almost too simple.
That's why it works. The idea is when you start a new habit, make it something you can do in less than 2 minutes.
Seriously. Like what?
So read every night becomes read 1 page. Do yoga for 30 minutes becomes take out my yoga mat. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes.
Okay. Why does that work?
Because the hardest part is often just starting. Anyone can commit to 2 minutes, right? It overcomes that inertia. And once you've started, you're much more likely to keep going anyway.
Ah, it's a gateway.
Exactly. The goal at first isn't duration or intensity, it's just showing up consistently. Standardize before you optimize. Doing 1 push-up is infinitely better than doing 0.
Get the habit established, even in a tiny form. Makes total sense. Okay, law #3, make it easy. Now for the final piece, law #4, make it satisfying. Why is satisfaction so important?
Because we repeat what feels good. Simple as that. Rewards complete the habit loop in the brain, telling it, hey, that was good, let's do it again.
But lots of good habits don't feel good immediately, right? That
Yeah.
exercise is hard, saving money means not spending.
Exactly. That's the core problem. Good habits often have delayed rewards. The benefit of today's workout might not show up for weeks or months, but our brains evolved to prioritize immediate gratification.
Which is why bad habits, with their instant payoffs, are so sticky.
Precisely. Smoking, junk food, procrastination, they offer immediate pleasure or relief, even if we know they're bad long term.
So how do we fight that? How do we make good habits satisfying now?
We need to engineer some immediate reward. Add a little bit of immediate pleasure to the good habits and maybe some immediate pain to the bad ones.
Okay, now.
Reinforcement is key. Use small, immediate rewards right after you complete a good habit. It could be simple praise, tracking your progress, or even using the Premack principle.
The what principle?
Premack principle, basically grandma's rule. First, eat your veggies, the less desired habit. Then you get dessert. the desired reward. Link something you have to do with something you want to do immediately after.
Like temptation bundling, but focused on the reward afterward.
Kind of, yeah. And for bad habits, you can make them immediately unsatisfying.
How?
A habit contract is one way. Make a pact with an accountability partner, state the bad habit you'll stop, and agree on a painful consequence if you slip up, maybe paying the money or doing something embarrassing.
Ouch. Social consequences?
Exactly. Just having an accountability partner, someone who knows your goals and checks in, makes slipping up less appealing because you don't want to let them down.
Makes the cost of the bad habit immediate.
Mm.
And habit tracking was mentioned as satisfying too. Seems simple.
It is, but it's powerful. Marking an X on a calendar, seeing a streak build in an app, it provides immediate visual proof of progress.
Like a mini reward in itself.
Totally. It feels good to see the chain grow, and you don't want to break it. It also reinforces your identity. I'm the kind of person who sticks with this.
You're literally watching yourself become that person. Okay, those are the 4 laws. Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, powerful framework. But the book goes further into advanced stuff.
Yeah, once you've got the basics down, there are ways to refine things, like aligning habits with your natural talents.
Like to your strengths.
Exactly. Genes might give you predispositions, but they don't lock you in. Still, habits will feel more satisfying and easier to stick with if they kind of fit with what you're naturally inclined towards or enjoy. It's about picking the right game to play, where the odds are in your favor.
Don't just force yourself into something that feels totally wrong for you. Find the path of least resistance that still leads forward. What about staying motivated long-term? The Goldilocks rule?
Right. The Goldilocks rule suggests we're most motivated when tasks are right on the edge of our abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, but just challenging enough, about 4% beyond your current level, the book estimates.
Keeps you engaged in that flow state.
But even then, boredom is inevitable with any long-term habit. Even the most successful people get bored with their routines.
So what's the secret?
The secret is they show up anyway. Professionals stick to the schedule even when they don't feel like it. Amateurs let boredom or lack of motivation derail them. Consistency trumps temporary feelings.
Just got to push through the boredom sometimes? Are there ways to make it less boring? Variable rewards.
Yeah, variable rewards like slot machines or social media notifications can definitely combat boredom because the unpredictability keeps us hooked, increases craving.
But maybe not for essential habits.
Probably not solely rely on them, no. Consistency is still key, but maybe adding some novelty can help. And beyond that, continuous improvement is crucial. Habits get you automated, but mastery requires deliberate practice on top of that.
So automate the basics, then consciously work on getting better. And there was a warning about identity, too. A paradox.
Yeah, kind of interesting. A strong identity helps build habits initially, but if it becomes too rigid, it can actually prevent future growth. You get too proud, maybe, and stop seeing where you could improve or adapt.
You define yourself too narrowly by the habit.
Right. And finally, the book touches on this deeper idea about satisfaction, that maybe true satisfaction isn't getting everything you want.
But managing your wants.
Exactly, learning to manage, maybe even reduce your desires. The equation was satisfaction, liking, wanting.
If your wanting always outstrips your liking, you'll never be satisfied.
Pretty much. Finding contentment now rather than always chasing the next thing, it suggests inner peace comes when you stop turning every observation into a problem to be solved or a desire to be fulfilled.
Deep stuff. It's not just about tweaking behaviors, but perspective, too.
Absolutely. Logic tells us why we should act, but emotion is often what actually makes us act. And rewards usually follow sacrifice or effort. Real self-control isn't about constant struggle. Maybe it's just about better desire management.
Wow. Okay, that was, well, a real deep dive. So much practical insight there. Let's try and quickly recap the absolute must-knows.
Okay. Key takeaways. First, the immense power of small, tiny atomic habits. They compound, don't dismiss them.
Right. Second, identity is crucial. Focus on becoming the type of person you want to be, not just on the outcome. Let that be your North Star.
Then the 4 laws, the practical toolkit. Make the cues for good habits obvious. Make the habits attractive. Make them easy. And make them satisfying.
Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. Got it. And apply the inverse to break bad habits. Invisible, unattractive, difficult, unsatisfying.
Exactly. And finally, remember things like playing to your strengths, managing boredom by just showing up, and continuously reflecting and improving.
And remember, this whole habit thing, it's not a one-and-done deal. It's a journey, right? A process of learning, tweaking, refining as you go.
Constantly evolving. There's no finish line you cross. and you're done with habits.
Okay, so here's maybe a final thought for everyone listening to chew on.
Go for it.
Based on everything we've talked about,
Mm-hmm.
what's just one tiny change you could make, like today,
Mm.
inspired by these ideas?
Mm-hmm.
What small step could you take to start building that identity you want or moving towards those results? Think about your current systems. Where could making something a little more obvious or attractive or easy or satisfying have the biggest ripple effect?
Just one small thing to start the momentum.
Exactly. And of course, if this sparked your interest, definitely grab Atomic Habits for the full picture. It's packed with even more detail.
Highly recommend it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the
Thanks for the great chat.